for a great show, just for a great time. I promised you yesterday that we're going to continue the conversation. If you're new to the Coffee Break Show, we share news, inspiration, motivation. We share tips, tools, and techniques to help you create thrivability in your life. We help you make decisions and give you the information that you need to know to be well informed and help you grow your success. I want to say thank you to everybody being on here. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see you. Good morning, Scott and Vickie. Hey, look who's back again with us. Peter, nice to see you on. And he's saying good morning. Good morning to you too as well. Nice to see you on, buddy. Hey, good morning, Kara. Nice to see you. Good morning, Scott Anthony. Nice to see you. And look at, okay, Ryan, nice that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so here's what we have decided. Scott and I were having a conversation, and Donnie had a conversation with us, and we were like, you know what? Every Friday, you two should go on. So I want to let you know that Scott is going to be the co-host of what we are going to call Friday Wrap Up. And that gives me the opportunity to have, thank you so much. This is about the nicest compliment you can get. Thank you. Good morning, Mary France, because I know if Peter's there, Mary France is there. Thank you. So today I want to be telling you that every Friday, every single Friday, we're going to be talking about news. We're going to be talking about success. We're going to be talking about the things that we wrapped up this weekend in the discussion. And yesterday we hit a tipping point in the world. We hit a tipping point where we started to notice something had happened that had never happened before. And that is that we had Brian Sims come on with his live video that he put out yesterday in regards to not letting any of the Democrats know in the House of Representatives inside Pennsylvania that there was COVID there. And it was upsetting because he had just donated a kidney. And I think, Scott, didn't you just say we have kind of a follow-up of what was happening there as to somebody actually getting COVID in there that wasn't informed about that? Good morning, Donnie. Nice to see you.
I just saw this. It was posted on The Hill, and it was a Twitter from them. And Senator Bob Casey, Democrat of Pennsylvania, said on Friday that he had tested positive for coronavirus antibodies, becoming the second senator in as many days to disclose that they had been infected with the disease. It said in a statement that he had, quote, low-grade fever, some mild flu-like symptoms earlier in the spring, and received the antibodies test last week to determine if he could donate blood plasma, which would be studied as a potential treatment for COVID. So
that's great.
He's already agreed that he's positive, apparently. And I don't know for sure from this if we've got enough information to say that he's on the other side of it and is just carrying the antibodies, whether he's still, sloughing off the virus and contagious at this point. But nonetheless, another one has been positive, has the antibodies, and is participating in the study as to how to isolate, concentrate, and use those as a therapy.
That's really good. I mean, that's finally some good news. This is an uncertain time. I want to switch canvases today when we're talking about, the coronavirus. The way I see the world now is pre and post pandemic. And I am going to coin the term right now, the pandemic economy right now that's going down. And I want to let you know, we pulled up some data and we're checking all our data twice and, making sure that it is absolutely the most accurate data out there. And the data that we pulled, it was in regards to the amount of people around the world that were going to move into abject poverty because they didn't do something. They didn't take a plan. And they're expecting a little over 135 million people. This is a global number, not just country centric, but a global number to fall into that abject poverty. And why? Because they were waiting, because they were doing something. And so today I want to talk about with us, there's really only two choices you have if you're in the middle class right now. If you have a job, whatever, there's only two choices. You either are going to fall into that abject poverty or you're going to step up into becoming wealthier. That's really the two places you have to step. You can step into abject poverty or poverty, because the middle class is the thing that is being squelched right now. The thing that is being harmed the most is the middle class.
That's 135 million people out of societies and economies where they had middle class incomes, could support themselves, send the kids to school, contribute to the community in a meaningful way. So if that's yanked out, then that becomes another demand on the economies of where they're located.
So the question is, what do we do about it? The question isn't, we're at this window right now where a lot of people are wasting their effort binge watching Netflix, in my opinion. I think right now is the time that you want to invest. Put the pedal to the metal. The time right now is to invest. And I don't mean in markets. I don't mean in production. It's time to invest in yourself. It's time to invest in ways to understand the new post-pandemic economy. And I kind of want to go over and get your ideas of what we think I know what I think the post-pandemic economy is going to look like. And I certainly want to get to the point that you have an idea where you're telling them what the futurist look is for the economy as a whole. And I kind of want to start right there, like the post-pandemic economy. I know we're guesstimating at this point, but the first thing I'm going to think of, the post-pandemic economy is going to be about restructuring how income is made in the first place. I think that no matter what, one of the things that's really important to know about this is that in the beginning, there was no pandemic, and they already knew that the next decade we were going to lose a plethora of jobs to AI, robotics. And we knew that there were new jobs that were going to be made, but they were not going to be keeping up with how many jobs got destroyed.
There's too much population increase to, how do you say it? There's going to be a surplus of human labor as to what the economy is going to require. When you lose
That's right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 10%, 15%, and in some ways, this virus has only accelerated that adoption of the AI because there is a demand, there is a requirement on the employer to keep the employees safe. And if they can't keep the employees safe and that job still needs to be done, what do you use to accomplish that task? What do you use in the Amazon warehouse? What do you use behind the McDonald's ordering stand? What kind of technology do we have that could be rapidly implemented to keep that worker safe, not necessarily employed?
That's
but
right.
Safe. So that I think until we know exactly or even have a guesstimate on how long this pandemic goes, I don't know if we have that answer. But
that's true.
Yeah, what we're being shown though is the best way is that if you can remain at home and do your work via remote, that's where it's all headed. So I even saw a story where there's, employers are saying if you don't need a vehicle to get to work, then we're going to reduce your compensation by X amount of dollars or a percentage. And that becomes kind of scary as 22 because you're still going to need a vehicle for your daily living, but the corporation that you're employed by will not compensate you for what would have been a requirement to get to work.
Yes.
There's a lot of moving variables out there, a lot of them.
And that's the interesting thing about what I'm calling the pandemic economy, because the thing is, even as we open up our countries and we open up going back to work, we're still going to find hot spots where COVID is. And just because you go back to work doesn't mean the customer shows up. If you go back to work doesn't mean the business is stable enough to even pay you a paycheck. If you go back to work, it doesn't mean that business won't close tomorrow, the next day, or the next day. It doesn't mean that going back to work is the correct answer for that. So what is the correct answer for that? Well, I have some ideas. I think that we cannot just see my business as the only business that's going to support me. I think that we need to do what millionaires have always done. The average millionaire has 7 sources of income, 7. Now, that 7 sources of income helps that millionaire not rely on a system, not rely on a job. And I think putting yourself in the driver's seat of learning how to do that, that is going to be the pandemic economy, because you don't know in these seven income sources, you do not know which one is going to open up or close down. You don't know which one is going to work.
That's not something when you're even going to business school, college, for whatever your trade, your profession is. Nowhere on the radar screen is that you need to have more than just this particular job that you're writing a big fat check to the university to get a diploma to say you can do. Then you got to go out, you got to go through internships. So there is a reconfiguring of the education system of how we educate people to use their talents and gifts in life outside of one single employment. Because if you were to have 2 sources of income, that means a spouse,
yes,
or a partner, not from yourself, but a spouse.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. So that's the other thing.
And you know, what's interesting too is in the post-pandemic economy, we have to start looking at what are the hardships coming up that we're not aware of right now. And I think Donnie over here, he has the correct one right here. You guys want to read this article, food. So here's the thing. There, should after COVID-19 should food be a right? Just like we're working with the stupid, should healthcare be a right? You're born, healthcare is a right. It should be a human right. Is food a human right or a commodity? This is the interesting thing, because our food systems have been just completely obliterated and unprotected, and we have shortages coming that most people don't know. And this is what they're going to think of.
I see that as both being true. It is a commodity because it takes energy, resources, time, and effort to get that to your table, but at the same time, it is also a right. So it's how do we compensate those that are creating and supplying this right so that they have their fair exchange, that they get compensated appropriately. And I don't think it's going to be on the open market. I think there's a problem with the commodities and futures exchanges, that those financial institutions are determining the value of what the farmers produce, and then on a global scale, not on a localized scale, not where it's needed and demanded the most. So how can Chicago determine what the pig prices are in China? It's kind of ridiculous. So I think that financialization has got to be extracted either immediately or gently out of the system so that we can have proper price discovery, and therefore you have the proper investment in the resource that the people need today.
And that is going to be a big resource. And when we're coming into that pandemic economy, when we're coming into the post-pandemic era, and I want to let you know, I do not believe we're going to see a post-pandemic era for at least 4 years. That's my guess. And there are going to be hot spots and not hot spots and not. The best thing you can do is it's like the fundamental foundation of the switch in which we make income has to be 1, more entrepreneurial, 2, more home-based, and 3, we can also do manufacturing then. And I think a lot of things are, what is happening with real estate investment or things like that. And one of the things that we're waiting for is to hear back, probably not till July, does the second stimulus package get through? And if so, did it get through with the renters thing where you don't have to pay rent for a year? If that's already on the table, now I want you to listen. There's evidence everywhere. There's evidence. If they have something that they put in the table where the real estate investor who has 100 apartments and now has 1 year where they're not collecting rent because the government said, hey, wait, no rent, no collecting. Did he buy that property with debt? Did he buy that property with a loan? Does he outright own it? Because it's going to fall back then on the bank, isn't it? He's not going to be able to keep up with his property, the property price on it. So when I look at this, property taxes on that has to be dismissed.
Yep.
And they're thinking of that with mortgages as well. And so to me, I'm like, You've heard of what a debt jubilee is, yes? Well, just in case most people don't know what a debt jubilee is, it's when all debt around the world is forgiven. And to me, it's like if they say there's no rent or mortgages for a year, that is a clue as how the state of the economy is. If that's a big clue.
Debt jubilees used to be in every 49, 50-year event, a 7 times 7. So at 49th year, the debt at that point was essentially forgiven.
Dismissed.
Yeah, gone. So we restart over. So every 2 generations, you begin anew. So what obviously none of us have lived through is who is holding that debt in that 46th, 47th, 48th year. The other thing that used to be forbidden was usury.
Yes.
Rates. So we've had these two structures, kind of like nooses around our neck, around the productivity. It's a tax on our productivity. But then where does all of that money go? It goes back to the banks, back to, the siphoning of our energy out of the system. So I think a debt jubilee is inevitable. It's either that or the whole thing blows up. It's just how do you do a controlled demolition?
And that's kind of what they're trying to do right now. A controlled demolition, just to see if it goes up there. So
I kind of think this is why this thing is an accident rather than intentional. It may be an accidental, but yet sort of planned pandemic. It was in the playbook, but boom, here it is. And now that they're in the midst of this war, how do we do it gently? How do we bring about our agenda to remove this other element of chaos that's at play?
And this is the most important thing you just said, because in this time, the how to, there's a gap. There's a gap of time between the how to and the execution. And this is the most important thing for you to take advantage of. For you to know that there's this gap, there's this impending time, this is going to happen, it will happen. And how do you shore up your life right now? And here's the thing, we're not talking about rebuilding. We're talking about restructuring, which is vastly different. And I want to tell you how it's different. Restructuring has, you have experience, you have knowledge, you have skill sets that you've already learned. You're not starting from zero and rebuilding. You're restructuring from where you are and using your experience, your tools, your ingenuity, your creativity to create and restructure your income sources. Do you understand that? That's the power of being in this gap.
Yep. And because of the chaos, we have the ability, if you're creative, if you're inventive, if you're a bit of a risk taker, to reinvent yourself. It's not a great reset, but like you said, it is a great restructuring. And as any rock climber climbs a mountain, you rarely use the same stance over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because the terrain is always different as you're going up the rocky path. You're going to have to use in every moment a little bit of a different stance to maintain your uprightness and then progression up the hill.
Yeah. So the time to act in this is, we're in the what I call pre-pandemic stage. I know there's, because it's still in the.
South Korea opened the schools. How long did that last? Less than a week. And they have to close them again because they've had another outbreak. That is very clear to us where we are going to be this fall. We may think that we have, we're clear, we're ready to go back to school. We can go shopping without, whatever gear we feel we're appropriate to wear in any given situation. But the kids in school, just like with the flu or with chickenpox, it's a big old virus melding mess. And I don't think we're ready to go back to school.
So, and I want to bring this up. Donnie brought up something I want to bring up. I think it's so important. Middle class, listen up. This is very true, Robin. Now middle class America is waiting in lines at food banks. Middle class America is starting to feel the impact of food shortages. And presently, these shortages have now crossed the line into the middle class. Supply chain issues have impacted the U.S. government effectiveness against hunger. So what is it that these are all signs right now? They're happening right now. This is the pandemic economy that we are stepping into. Eventually, there are sources right now that we've read that talk about how the end of the day, there's, not really any food. There's like a bunch of leftover beefsteak, tomatoes, and a couple of things that don't match. And you put them in a box and here you go. This is what you have. This is what's going on. So you have to begin right now, or it's like a question. Are you going to sink or swim? That's the question. Are you sinking or swimming?
Well, we always begin to sink before we decide we should swim. That's the mental process we go through. It's always a decision tree. If then that.
Yes.
That's just how it is. But if you can recognize you got to swim, then let's put on our trunks and go.
Yeah, and that's the future of that is going to be very much like your ancestors. They're tough people, and they got to the point where they created systems and things that made them a little more sustainable, that made them a little more their own things. Like, I think the best thing to be in the future right now is going to be a farmer. And I don't mean a big mass corporate farm. I mean a local farmer, like you're feeding your neighbors and, the people in your community. I think that's probably going to be the easiest, most solid business there. And you can always barter with food.
I can see you out there feeding the cows. They needed their alfalfa this morning. Let's just go buck those bales, feed those heifers, and, get on with the day's work. Then we get to do a show.
Yeah. So what is so important about the future is I want to talk about shoring up your income, shoring up your income right now. What are the things that you can do that are getting to the point where you want to be in place right now? So I'm going to tell you, I think that shoring up your income means you need to have a digital source of income, whether that's an Amazon, whether it's whatever your digital source of income. Yeah. I think you need a local source of income, so that you are serving your community with something.
That's what our children used to do. They would mow the yards. They would shovel driveways. They would, it's tasks in your community, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And I love this because I think this is important. This is the most important thing right now. And Barty Toto was on Wednesday, and this is all she talked about. You have to build your brand online. You have to have a brand or build that brand online. Now, here's the interesting thing. I want to go a step further with this, Peter. It's building a brand, not a product. There are a bajillion products to sell. There's a bajillion places to go to. You want to get the products or the places or the things that you like and promote your brand, the brand of you. And that is one of the things that I have to tell you over time has built my wealth. It has built my wealth over time. I've only sold things that I believed in 100%. 100%. And so those people who've been following my sales with me for 10, 15, 20 years, if I say this is the best thing, you want to get this one, they get it because you're building your brand right now.
Yeah, she was very clear about that you are your brand. They're buying you, not a product, not your brand per se, but you.
Yeah.
That was key. It was really
of
course.
It was a good key. It was a good concept, but that's what's going to happen because trust me, there's corporations that are built on big corporations that are built on debt. It's why we have to continue to bail out every automaker every time they're in trouble because they built even though they're selling thousands and thousands of cars, I don't know how they're not profitable yet, but the business is built on debt. And when what's going to happen here in a little while is that it's going to get to the point where it's going to be like 2008. Credit is going to be hard to get. Yep. And consumer credit is going to be even harder to get because if you're not working, you have no income. Why are they lending you money?
And we're seeing the real great risk of private equity investment because they have been this single stake in the heart of so many what were healthy companies. They come in, they reconfigure, they extract the value from that company and then saddle it with debt. and that continually has to be paid. That's money on interest. That's money on debt that should have been reinvested back in the company to let it thrive. Private equity.
Yeah.
We have not seen the end of its disaster role in American corporate financing.
And there's also plenty of companies out there that are debt free. Those are
Yeah.
the companies you want to represent their products from. Are they debt free? Are they scalable? Are they growable? If you have those kinds of things, I want to pop this right up here too, because I think this is important. Amid this global crisis, the virus reminds us we are all human. The greater question is, where do we go as a people? As a people, not as countries, not as anything else, as a people. This is so important because we have global problems. We don't have country-centric problems. When we take a look at, food shortages, that's global. These are all country-centric issues. What different choices will we make in businesses and commerce? Beautiful thing. I want to continue on. How will this affect education of our children? We must remember, hungry children do not learn in class. Food and housing are the biggest priority. How can we solve this problem and coexist as humans peacefully? Isn't that an interesting thing? They have to stop dividing us, but how do we coexist peacefully?
I mean, in every nation is like a piece of a puzzle where we have, they cut up that puzzle and it's all sort of confusing shapes. You're like, where does this little piece go? So we have so many what appear to be contradictory connections with those around us, but when it's all one big picture, it fits together perfectly. And you're like, oh, how did I not see that? There's the solution right in front of me. And I believe we've got far more in common with each other than we do not. And
Yes.
it's a function of leadership. For me, it's a function of leadership to bring us together, and we have the mental capacity, we have the compassion, we have the understanding, we have the skill sets to solve everything that can be presented to us.
Yes.
But we can't look at those leaders that were lording over us as these problems emerged, because obviously they were a part of the problem. So to me, it's about leadership.
And that's so important right here, what you just said, because just imagine, Scott, just imagine in the visualization that you gave, what if the world coming together wasn't some big conspiracy theory? What if it wasn't control? What if it wasn't the way they base it? What if we were cooperative in a way where we were one world, one humanity? And what if that was actually a healthy thing for us, excuse me, and not the division that we see by being country centric?
Yeah, I think it's totally possible. There was something that hit me, and I kind of wrote it down, and I wanted to, maybe I don't have it in here, that we have leaders that were not necessarily trained to lead, through the experiences of life that, say, you and I have, the fire and the water of tears and anger and all those frustrations, but they instead went through the trials of a brotherhood, of
Yeah.
rituals, of being indoctrinated into a club, and
Yeah.
then presented as our only choice for leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have leaders that are of us, by us,
Yes.
and for us.
Yes.
And there's such a huge disparity between their priorities
And
and
who's
what are
been,
the priorities of the people.
yes.
And
Yes.
that is where it has to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
Broken.
Yes, because it's like, I got to tell you, when you're in the foxhole with somebody and the bullets are flying over your head, the bond that's created by that one experience. And if you're separated from that and you've never been in that foxhole, how are you ever going to know or have that connection or have that even thought or thought basis? I mean, how is that going to happen? And we're
Yeah.
going wild over here.
Okay,
And
well,
I just
listen,
want to
has
pop
there ever
this
been
up.
a congressman that's been on Medicaid, been on
Yeah,
unemployment,
never,
been in the
never.
food line?
Yep.
And that's the disparity, because they haven't participated in the issues and the problems, and that's why the French king and queen way back in the late 1700s lost their heads. Let them
Mhm.
eat cake. Okay, mm-mm, mm-mm.
Yeah, and I love this, and I'm thinking it might be Ryan. It's all about leadership. I agree with that.
Yep.
But let's not blame the leaders. It's all about leadership. But I'm looking over here and going, this is the new leadership. You building your brand. It's all about leadership. It's so easy to blame the leadership of anything. We can always critique it and judge it and say this or that. We have too soon to be leaders that have not been given formal or informal leadership development. That's true. But we don't teach that really in school. We teach kind of a military style of leadership or a follow the leader type leadership. We don't teach a think for yourself, have reason, have discernment. We have the golden rule, but that's like kind of brushed over in ourselves. How do we, move forward without having a sense of ourselves? We can't. It's impossible. You have to have the strongest sense of yourself right now, or you will sink. Yep. You won't swim. You'll sink.
The seas are turbulent.
They are.
We're turbulent. And, how big is the boat you're in? Does it have options? You're talking about 7 income sources. That's 7 lifeboats.
That's right. 7 lifeboats. And you can manage them because there are several different ways to create 7 income streams where you're not working a bajillion hours a week. And we are in the pandemic economy. And I will tell you right now, the pandemic economy is that the sale is harder. Their people are feeling so cynical. They're feeling so, cautious. They're also noticing that some of this wasn't created by them. They're looking at what's been happening, and it's not in their control.
No, it's like being on the Titanic and all of a sudden the alarm is going off. You're sound asleep because the population, without a question, consciousness-wise, has been asleep. And then you're rudely awakened. And like, what do I do? What do I scramble? They're in unfamiliar territory. They're on a boat that they can't pilot, and they don't know what life rafts are available, and are there enough of them for all aboard? The answer is obviously no, because of so many reasons.
This is the issue right here. This is the issue: authoritarianism versus servant leadership. And you know what's interesting? It's like when you get to the point where you are thinking to yourself, where you're thinking that, man, if I cheat people, I'll make more money. I mean, really, to me, that's the only way that you're going to make more money. And you can't think of another thing.
And if you sense that the game is rigged against you, it's okay to make those moral compromises in how you engage with the game.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what
they're not playing by the rules. Then why should I? Why should I fall in line? Why should I do this, this, and this, which only serves their fraud? It
exacerbates the issue in the first place. And so there's a lot of hardworking people that are trying to stay in the structure, and they're like, man, I need a living wage. I need a living wage. I can't work like this. Well, guess what? We have to get to the point where your servant leadership is part of your brand. And the thing of the establishing your brand is I'm telling you, is the number one thing for the future. You're either going to be part of the solution or part of the problem. And that dividing line will be centered, part of the solution or part of the problem. And guess what? That doesn't depend on party line. Oh, the solution solvers are only the people who are right-winged or left-winged. That's not it. It's going to get very individuated, very individuated. It is going to be, who that servant leader is. So,
an individuated, meaning we're all looking at these problems and these moral dilemmas through our own experiences. And we're not going to all interpret it the same way. So there may be this fine line back and forth, as you stated, but we may be dancing on both sides depending on the experience, so we can navigate and create an income, maintain safety, create security for the families, and put food on the table.
Yeah. These are all basic things that are being so disrupted right now. Just maybe this is a pivotal moment for how we view business and life on Earth. Yes. I mean, some people can't even think that big, but that I think is very visionary. Maybe this is a point where we evolve as humans. Just maybe the divine is giving us this moment in time to reflect and be present. And not only that, I want to tell you something I think is so important about what Donnie just said right here. It's the moment to reflect and be present. I think, and I'm going to call everyone out listening to this, I truly believe that there are people right now who are hesitating, who absolutely know they are supposed to be leading something in this new pandemic economy. I know there are some of you out there that are hedging, saying, should I, could I, would I, maybe I wouldn't, whatever your story is. But inside your soul, where your heart beats, right in here, you know that you were born for this moment in time to make a difference in the world. And you're going to have to trust yourself, trust the message, and step out there. Step out there, step out there, step out there. If there's a time you are needed, now is that time. Now is that place. It's like you get to the point where you're looking at this and the divine is giving us a moment in time to reflect and be present. And if you are reflecting and being present with yourself and you have that nudge, your time is now. And that stepping out in faith, that stepping out, this is the switch that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's it. That I've never seen it put so succinctly.
Yes.
Because that's what is coming. If you look at Minneapolis, what they're going through right now,
yes,
it's there. Everybody is reaching out through chaos for a change.
That's
we
right.
Are hungry for a change, because what has been isn't going to serve us into the future.
Mm-hmm. And this is the thing. We have to give up this. I want to go back to Peter because I think this is so important. Today, you have to stop working hard and work smart. This is so important. It's like today you have to work smart, not hard, like a unit of time for a unit of money. You have to build a unique vehicle that you build once and it pays you for life. There's so many opportunities right now, so many easy ways to do this. So many people are doing it as well, but this is the fundamental switch. We keep looking for a hard way. I love this. You are talking to me, Vickie. Thank you, Ryan. I knew it was you, man, because that's a Ryan thing to say. It's like, this is the key thing right now. We are moving into servant leadership, and it is doing whatever it takes. But you have to follow the thing that's inside you. There isn't a roadmap right now. There are no experts. Nobody's been here before. Nobody knows what's going to happen. No, all we are doing is being under the microscope and watching kind of this experiment explode into space, you know?
Not even those that claim to know truly know.
That's right.
And they wouldn't tell you they know, because then it would tip their card, tip their hand as to what they truly know. And we're smart enough to read between the lines. Even if it is a conspiracy theory, we will read between the lines.
This is the key thing. I want to tell you this in a gentle, kind way, as gently as I can say. Nobody is coming to save you. Not the government. We will see such debt that governments, states, companies, everything will be, that we will see countries collapse, just like we did in 2008. It's not any different. We saw banks that were, what was it? Greenland, Iceland, where they froze all the banks of everybody that were there. It's no different. We saw governments fall then. We're going to see that happen right now. We saw the biggest 150, 200-year-old companies fall and never come back. We don't look around and go, I'll stop at Bear Stearns today, or Lehman, or, you know, they're to the point where these structures that were hundreds of years old collapsed. We are going to go forward. We're watching that happen as we look at the airline industry, just that one industry, and everything that is attached to that industry.
Yep.
We're going to see that kind of collapse. Nobody is coming to save you. You have to restructure.
Yeah, it's different than 2008, where it was largely a financial issue. brought on
Mm-hmm.
by exploding real estate prices, the ability to lend to people who
Yep.
obviously couldn't pay it back, and then they
Yeah.
sold that off to pension funds and those who believed they were buying a
An
AAA or
asset.
a single A, an asset, a debt-based asset. And now when you have the millions of jobs just gone in weeks, just gone, and they'll likely never return.
That's
Then
right.
what hurts for me is that there's so many small service businesses that were family oriented, and it was people's
Yes.
savings that's evaporated because they're not going to be able to pay their rents, pay their taxes, pay the utilities, and then rehire, resupply, and then spin up businesses, spin up their services again. That's going to be a really, really tough road to follow. And if the
Yeah.
government does it to them, then that's debt that either A, has to be paid off or defaulted upon.
Yes.
One or the other.
So when I look at this Friday and I want to wrap up this week, I want to talk about some of the things that we have learned about. We've learned that yesterday was a strong tipping point for me. It was a strong, strong, strong tipping point. And that tipping point was when politician turned on politician. Usually they're kind of a brotherhood. And even though we like to think that there are parties that are, Republicans and Democrats, and they're not friends, that's not true. They go to state dinners and everything else, and they come in and they meet each other and they are friends. When they start turning on each other by not telling somebody or withholding in some way, that means there is now dissension in the ranks, which is they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. So if they don't know what to do, you're going to have to step up and really think about what you're going to do. So we talked about this week. We also had discussions on food and food coming into the being important to grow your own food. Like number one thing, I think.
To the best of your ability. There are
Yes.
many, many, many millions of homes where it just isn't. It is not possible. They don't have access to sunshine, lights, so forth, and that's just how our demographics have shifted into the cities, and also into a modicum of greater control of your movement, of your thoughts, of your ability to impact, the country. And I grew up in the country, and honestly, I hated it. I could not wait to get to the city, and now I'm back in the country, and I'm so grateful to be where it's quiet, where it's quiet.
Yeah. I want to say this too. This, I think, is one of the most important things right here. This is, to me, those connections that you're going to make, those joint ventures. Also, it's dependent on the people you connect with, your inner circle, and do combine all talents. So to create abundance, this is the biggest thing right here. Whatever you do, your next biggest skill is going to be able to lead inside a group of people who work together. And we're hoping to call it community. But wherever you plant your foot or plant your hat, it doesn't matter if you're smart. It matters that you play well with other people,
Yep.
that you can come together and be emotionally smart. Tamara McCleary was on a few weeks ago, and she made that. She said, we're so busy creating all this nano intelligence, and we're going to have a lot of intelligence without any emotional IQ. And that's going to create a lot of smart tantrum throwers. And I agree. It's who you're with and how you react with them. You have to be the most important thing you have to be is part of a community right now, and a community that you don't hang on to riding coattails, a community that you actually produce for, work for, go to the mat for, people you love.
So then it's about identifying your talents and what
Mm-hmm.
you add to that community. Going back to what Peter
Yes.
said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
your combined all talents, and we're back to the puzzle. We all are a shape. We all have abilities to connect and support one another in ways that are different from each other, and that is our strength.
Yeah, that is rich. And I want to end over here with this, because I love Donnie's quotes here. Will you be the one to manifest the idea Everything can change and will change, for that is the one constant in life. Amen. The next answer is floating up there in the ethers. Will you be the one to grab it and bring it to fruition? We must step up and focus our attention on new solutions. And that we're going to end this show with today. This is one of the core principles of what's happening right now. There is so much money, so much opportunity, so much time. There's so much that can be done right now. Don't listen to these stories of we are powerless, we can't serve. Step up. All right, Scott, thank you for being with me. We're going to do this every Friday. Scott and I are going to get on here and we're going to do an hour show and we're going to have a really great time with you. Thanks for being with us today. This has been the Coffee Break wrap-up show on Friday. All right, peace out. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.